Hey, church, today we're in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, a chapter in which Paul is telling us a little bit about what his life looks like doing ministry for Christ. And it's not always easy for any of us. And he starts off in the first verse. He says, "Therefore, since through God's mercy we have this ministry, we do not lose heart." And so he knows that no matter what's going on, no matter the circumstances, that God is going to get them through it. And so they do not lose heart. And he kind of gives a little bit of their own personal story because he says, we've renounced secret and shameful ways. We've turned from that. We are not going to distort the gospel. We're not using deception in any way. No, we're going to just present the gospel clearly. And isn't that our job too, is as believers, is just to live lives in which we present the gospel clearly to others? I love the analogy or the metaphor he uses in verse 7 where he says, we have this treasure in jars of clay. This treasure he's talking about is really just the gospel, the good news, the hope we have in Jesus. And he is comparing our bodies to a jar of clay. Now, a jar of clay is what it sounds like, just a jar of clay that was used to store something. And sometimes it would be a treasure. And it was probably very inconspicuous. It didn't draw a lot of attention to what was inside. But I think Paul was maybe comparing us to a jar of clay for a couple reasons. I think one is the fact that the jar of clay is as basic as it was, as standard as it was, it still served a purpose. And aren't you glad to know today that God wants to use you, that your life serves a purpose? And then the second thing was the fact that this jar was very fragile. It was breakable. And in our own lives, we know that our lives are very fragile. They're breakable. But he says this, that they were stored in this jar of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us, which means any time that we make it through any kind of trial or hardship, it's not our own doing. The power is from the Lord. And he describes it like this. He says, we're hard-pressed on every side, but we're not crushed. We're perplexed, but not in despair. We're persecuted, but not abandoned. We're struck down, but we're not destroyed. So he's given this real life look of things that they've been through and some hard times, but no matter what, the power of God has seen them through. Well, today, just from Paul giving us a little look at his life today, I think we can be encouraged and we can be reminded that, man, it's so good to know that God wants to use us. He wants to use you. What can you do today to help further the gospel, to carry it to someone? And that amidst that, maybe you face trials of some sort. Maybe you're in a tough time. Remember that the treasure you carry is the power, is the hope, is the good news of Jesus. It's going to see you through. And no matter what, God will allow you to get through. Please be encouraged by that today.